something's missing inside of you. Just a bit of sugar to that horrid bitter. Maybe you taste different. Hold up, baby, I can't sit beside you.
Hi, everybody. Okay, it's been a while since we did this. Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Romance Class podcast. Romance Class is a community of Filipino authors of romance in English, the readers of the books, and the fellow creatives who help us make the stories that we love. This is our podcast's 5th season, and we will continue to talk about romance themes, tropes, media, with authors, readers, and fellow creatives. This season, we will be exploring topics that influence what we consume and what we create as Filipinos. On every platform, Filipinos are a huge segment of romance media on the consumer and creator side, and it's time that we are recognized for our contributions. The Romance Class podcast is produced by Tanya Arpa and Mina V. Esguerra. Before we start, we would like to remind everyone to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Head over to kilig.pub/YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and also click on the bell to be notified when a new video is coming up. My name is Mina V. Esguerra. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm hosting the episode today. This is our episode about Kilig, an anthology of 14 romance comics by 22 Filipino creators. This is a collab between RomanceClass and KOMIKET, and it started with a tweet in August 2021 and became an actual published anthology that we launched in October 2022. A little background on how we put this together. RomanceClass, as I mentioned, is a community of authors, mostly writing novellas and short stories. KOMIKET is a community of creators who make art and comics and sell them at regular KOMIKET fairs. RomanceClass actually participated in a KOMIKET years ago, and RomanceClass authors and readers go to KOMIKET fairs. And when I see Paulo Heras of KOMIKET at KOMIKET, we would throw around the idea of working together, and we finally did. If you're wondering how this project combines RomanceClass and KOMIKET, RomanceClass editorial guidelines require, among other things, the happy ending, meaning authors know when they start writing the story that their leads will end up together. For comics with romance elements, the creators don't necessarily think that. So in developing stories for this anthology, we just added that requirement, the happy ending. Because this project attracted RomanceClass authors and KOMIKET artists, we asked them to pair them up after an intro session that we actually called speed dating. At the end of 7 months, we had this book. And some of the creators are here today to talk about their stories. So I am told that my microphone is not okay right now. And of course, this wasn't happening earlier. Okay. Anyway, so before, as I try to fix this, let me look at the comments. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. So I removed the microphone. Let me know how that sounds. It probably isn't better, but okay. Let me. Okay. I will try to put this microphone back. I'm not sure how this will work. Thank you for bearing with me. Hi, friends. Hi, Ben. Hi, Edie. Hi, Denise. Hello, Leslie. Okay, so there's still feedback as I so hopefully we have backup audio and this isn't going to be a problem in backup audio. But while we try to figure it out, let's have our first set of creators. So what I wanted to do today is invite our creator pairs, and for some people just the author, for some stories just the authors, and have them talk about their story and how they put together this comic that they contributed. So uh, can we have our first pair, Gianne and Suzette?
Hi, hi Mina. Hi to all the listeners.
Hi.
And
Hello.
is my is my audio okay? My mic?
I can hear you, Suzette. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Gianne, and
Hi.
you're here. So Gianne and Suzette, they did Stand By Me. So it is the story in the anthology that is about that's about uh K, like P-pop. Sorry, it's the P-pop story that everyone's been waiting for. So I I requested that the creators who are appearing in this episode today introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their story. So, Suzette and Jeanne, how about you do that now?
Okay. Ikaw po muna.
Okay. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Suzette de Borja, and my pronouns are she and her. I've written several stories under Romance Class. The more recent ones were part of anthologies. One is Alta, which revolves around a fictional high society family, and another anthology I've contributed for is a medical romance anthology entitled The Doctor is in Love. And of course, the super latest one is part of the Romance Class KOMIKET Anthology Kilig. I wrote the story Stand By Me, which was wonderfully illustrated by Gianne, whom you will get to hear from in a bit. So, Stand By Me is a story about a fanboy and a fangirl, and they are scrambling over the last light stick inside the store, selling merch of their favorite ultimate P-pop boy group, Apex. And as if things were not chaotic enough inside the store, the stakes get higher when they realize that they actually know each other and that they share an unresolved past. So suddenly, a light stick is not just a light stick anymore, and Bardagulan and Landian take place. So when Mina asked who wanted to get involved with this project, I immediately wanted in. It was something I hadn't done before, written something for comics, and I thought churning words for a 24-page comic would be more manageable than a 30,000 manuscript, but I was wrong. Um, I pitched my story in a Zoom meeting, and luckily, Gian wanted to work with me after hearing my pitch because looking back, I realized I could have pitched it better. So thank you, Gian. Um, so I knew right off the bat I wanted to write about P-pop or Pinoy pop or Filipino pop, which I discovered during the pandemic, and I became a fan of one boy group in particular. And standing them gave me so much joy. And I was inspired to write a story from a fan's perspective. So I felt the concept of fandom culture would translate well into a comic. So it was pretty straightforward writing the first draft, which I shared with Gian. So she would already have an idea about illustrating it. But after finishing the first draft, I felt it was a bit wordy for a comic, so I wrote several drafts to bring the word count down, which was a challenge about how to edit and still manage to get the story across. I think that was the most challenging aspect of the whole project. There was a confrontation scene that action wise, nothing much was happening, but that I couldn't really edit anymore for fear of, taking too much out of the story. And but Gian was able to make it more visually dynamic. So the rest of the process was so much fun. Gian was a dream to work with because she's such a talented artist, and also she is a fangirl. And we were able to talk in fandom language, and the elements I were mentioning in the story, she would get, she gets it. And I love how she was able to convey the expressions I wanted from my main characters. Particularly the stress na maubusan ka ng merch. May hugot ako kasi up till now wala pa rin akong light stick ng SB19. So so that's where the hugot came from in the story. And then yung the Asar Kilig and the mysterious love interest. So I would get Kilig in our chat whenever Gian would share her drawings and her draft. And then she's so extra. I love Gian because she drew my fictional boy group individually. So, yun. So, when I write, there's always usually an object or symbol that becomes a running motif in my story. So, it can be food like lollipop or biko, or a musical instrument. So, for this one, the symbol had to be the light stick, and it had to be in the beginning and in the end. And it also ended up being on the cover. So it's a delight to me as a writer seeing things that were only in my head now interpreted and illustrated by an artist. So yeah, and before I end, I want to thank Mina, Paula, and Bunny for making this project possible, and a big congrats to all my fellow writers and artists for this anthology. So thank you.
Thank you, Suzette. Gian, do you want to share
Yeah. Uh,
your side of the story naman?
yeah, I feel so nervous, but at the same time, so excited. Hi, everyone. I'm Gianne Rabena, aka Gigi Raven, aka Dina Draws. My pronouns are she, her. I'm an artist, chaotic creative. I'm also the author of Heart and Hero, Filipino YA series. But for Kilig, I'm the illustrator of Orange Filled Phantom Love Letter, Stand By Me. I was excited when I found out I was going to be working with Miss Suzette. I immediately thought her story had so much potential in the fluffy rom-com department when everyone was pitching stories. I then reached out and we've been chatting on Instagram. This is where we sort of established the backdrop of this romance by building this fictional boy band fandom using stan culture, inspiration from boy band names to logos. An important aspect, especially for my part, is us deciding on the fandom color, since fandoms usually latch onto a color to sort of identify themselves or have a sort of pride for the group they're standing. Apex, the name that Miss Suzette decided on, was orange. If you look at the comic, you would see that everywhere, predominantly different shades of orange. I think we ended up with Hermes orange. Once this was established, it was easier to imagine the setting since the story revolves predominantly in a pop up merch store days before an important concert, which sana all, sana all P-pop groups. But before the actual design of the setting, I asked Miss Suzette how she would describe her characters. A huge part of what I look for in a romance are the characters, protagonists to root for, a love interest to fall for. I had to be able to channel personality into their design, and each panel has to portray that. I asked Miss Suzette her face claims or people she sort of imagines as her characters. So, uh, yeah, so like any procrastinating creative, I made a Pinterest board to get the feel of each character, their world, and to save some poses because I'm not a dancer myself, but I had to like look up poses for Isa and for Miko, the characters. I went into this concept art phase first, sketching out ideas for these characters. I wanted Miko to be charming but with playful tendencies, or for Isa, she always has a hard and stubborn look about her, but with occasional moments of the same fun and youthful attitude that mirrors Miko. So parang I wanted her to feel relatable off the bat. Parang like yung sinabi kanina ni Miss Suzette, her feelings before yung sa pila, the saline na part. And one of my favorite things to draw, or what I'm drawn to lately as an artist, are romantic interactions, characters holding each other. And for Stand By Me, I read the script and immediately launched into sketching the kiss. You get this sort of tension kasi from Miss Suzette's words. There's history there, history between the two characters. Even though very limited yung sa script, we have to like get so much into 24 pages, and then for some reason you can still feel that there's so much going on, but at the same time you get a glimpse of it in the few words, the few interactions that they have. And uh I had to like paint out these fragments of their history in page 3, but the ending, the concert, is the culmination of the whole story, the final image. So I wanted to do it well. So we have, if you could imagine, we have Miko holding up Isa in the middle of a concert, and she's got her arms around him in a trusting way as they share this moment, basking in the glory of listening to their favorite band. Very toothpaste commercial, but you see in the story why this moment of pure abandon is important. It has the same romantic energy that is seen in the cover. I think it's called the clinch, that pose. Correct me if I'm wrong. They're a little more bantery in the cover, and there's space despite the romance. So my process has been concept stage, building a boy band, which was fun. Thumbnails, since we had a page number limit, sketching each page, line arts, base colors, backgrounds, and then the dialogue placement bits come in last. The backgrounds were fun to do, but challenging. Luckily, I could mix and match the backgrounds and then just add it in a layer. So I added stuff like Apex plushies in a circular display row because most of the story is built up in a pop-up store. So I had to like I had to like imagine what kind of merch to use. So they're like Apex plushies, Apex earphones, posters, in varying shapes. But most important of all is yun light stick. I had to make sure that the light stick was a separate transparent PNG so that it could constantly be reused throughout the comic. We even went as far as to design a face for each boy band member because we needed that. Otherwise, it's harder to imagine who they're standing. I took inspiration from boy bands, so it was easy for us to understand what we wanted to portray because we were both fans of something. Uh, I would say that my inspiration for the art style in Stand By Me has always been shoujo and josei manga, webtoons wherein artists were free to express the emotion on the page. I honestly wanted to find more of that fluffy, feel good romances in local comics like back in the day. Uh, but where different kinds of Filipino women could be seen and have their romances, but with the orange already eliciting this restless energy in Stand By Me. Hopefully, it pops out of the page. It's a love letter to Stan culture and the dream for Filipino fandoms, I think. Pero yun, I just wanted to also thank Romance Class and KOMIKET for this opportunity because I was literally fangirling throughout the whole experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So the way that you described just putting together this story, Suzette and Gianne, it's like I'm on the author side kasi. So it's like the way that Gianne is describing how the other side works and how faces are given to these things that we to these people that we had imagined. It feels like such a wonderful parang experience that I don't know, maybe some writers just imagine would happen. And then, because that, if I may share, every month we do meetings where the artists would show their work, yung progress nila so far. And as someone who just writes words, and then when we publish it, it's still words. When we release it, it did feel like there was something different happening, because I totally understand a romance when it's written, and then seeing it take shape, seeing people, seeing it take shape, it really felt like a something was really being fleshed out. Iba yung feeling, ha, parang wow, nagkaroon ako ng moment na, and it wasn't even my story, it was just seeing your stories like parang unfold. Ang galing, ang galing. And thank you for parang describing it that way, na parang you're really this is how, like, you're pulling together what we want to see, and then actually drawing it. Oh my gosh. So we have a Q&A, but if you have questions for Gianne, Suzette, and any of the authors and artists, please drop them in the chat. And so we will have them. We will be having each pair of creators and authors one at a time, and talking about their story one at a time. So just drop, if anyone has questions for anybody out of sequence, just drop them in the chat, and we'll get them to answer it. So if do you have anything else to add about your story, Suzette, and Gian?
It was fun. It was fun to make. Yun lang.
Okay. So if that's it for now for Suzette and Gian. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next creator pair, we have I will ask to come on screen Cris Santos and Milo Galang. They are the, where's Cris? Okay. Okay, Cris and Milo are the artist and author of Last Minute Love You. So, Cris, Milo, can you go ahead and introduce your story?
Hello.
And also yourselves. Hi.
Hello. I'm Cris. My pronouns are she and her. I wrote a couple of stories na rom-com. There's a 4-part comic book series, but natigil na yung production. The Lolita Chronicles, and then some short stories submitted to 8 Letters, to Blue Multiverse. And I'm also part of the pioneer batch of KOMIKET University. So I've been joining KOMIKET for 7 years now, maybe. And I'm one of the writers kasi si Milo nagsulat din ng script for Last Minute Love You. Milo.
Hello, my name is Milo. My pronouns are he, him. Actually, naglalakad lang ako sa Ermita one day, and then Chris got off the jeep and she snatched me, and she's like, "You draw my comics," and we started creating this story, Last Minute Love You, and we affectionately just call it Lumley, just to shorten it. And what else is there to say? I'm a visual artist, a freelancer, and I mostly do comics, but I also do like spot illustrations and other editing jobs. And that's it for me.
So before we talk about I think the description of the story. What's the story about?
Yes. Yes, please.
Lumley is a love story between two procrastinators, Sam and Seth. They find themselves at odds as their personalities clash under the pressure from their academics, but soon find more in common with each other than they are different. And the story takes place during the final academic requirement, which is usually a thesis.
Okay, so to continue the story, I'm a little overwhelmed. Kasi how we got to work together, because Milo and I we're a real life couple, and real life last minute geniuses. So some of the things in the story are actually from like a combination of our experiences. Both of us work better when we are cramming. And the proven na yan over time. I think Mina also knows that I'm a crammer, but you know, it's there's so much pressure into that. So one day we were talking about it. Tapos parang we saw the call for the anthology, and I said, why not we write about it? But we want to make it light, and sabi ko, sige, let's look into how it's like to be, you know, for two people, two crammers to fall in love, ganyan ganyan. And then we chose the college life kasi we felt like andun yung lagi ka naman nagmamadali. Like, andun lagi yung you're always puyat, or you're always late, you're always trying to submit reports. So I said, that's the perfect, I think, setup or setting for such story. Plus, because I'm also a teacher, so ang dami ko ring pwedeng input. So, meron kaming back and forth ni Milo. For example, I would say, okay, etong ganito eksena, the registrar may not be able to say this. Ganun. More of the logical side ako, because I know how people talk or how things happen in the academe. So, for example, ito pwede siyang i-example sa klase. Um, our initial plan was to have an actual thesis, to create an actual thesis. Parang sample lang, and just, you know, para lang ma-feel namin din yung pressure din, tsaka na-feel namin yung characters. But given the time then, we were not able to do that. But that's in the works. That's in the works. Kung merong mabuo talaga na, mabuo namin yung actual na thesis. Anything else? And then, yeah, some of the script was done by Milo, and Milo is going to talk about how he wrote the script naman.
So originally it was going to be heat level 4, but then Chris talked me down. So yeah, originally I was looking at some romantic hentai just to get some pegs on how to squeeze the story in 24 pages. But then we were able to create the story instead na lang. Actually, it was also done for brevity, the story. And then we mostly me na did the deep dive sa how I did yung thesis ko, and then Chris was there to provide input on how the other side would have given feedback to it and ganyan. So uh I think we were the embodiment of right drunk, edit sober. I was very drunk. So yung naging process talaga namin was mostly chaos na hinulma namin into something that became Lumley. Kaya medyo makikita rin yung I did try to go for sa art, go for kind of this 90s vibe. Kasi this would be the time na college si Chris and I was just a baby. But no, I love the 90s aesthetic talaga. So that was a huge part of what inspired me for the visual style. I think you can see it in sa key art that I have on my side. And wala namang objections dun si Chris, so we just went ahead with it. Ayun, so that's how the process came about.
Yung, on the subject na rin of the 90s vibe, kasi nga, because if that was a set around 2000s or 1990s. So may mga notes kami, for example, meron na, anong cellphone meron ng time na yon? How did people talk? And well, mostly the information came from me. How did we text during that time? What was the fashion, you know, what was the fashion sense of people? Meron ba, we had a parang sometimes I would say parang bell bottoms, parang hindi na yan 90s, parang ganun. Parang that's for 70s or something, or what, late 2000s siguro, like early 2000s. May mga ganun kami notes. And then and even the names we had to even the choice of names we had to be very careful with it. We wanted something na alliterative and easy to remember, and something na when we created the story we also had the future in mind. Like if we continue the story, which we will continue, there's a we are already working on the 20 years after story for Lambi. So by the time the characters are already like in their 40s. So what's how do these people talk pag ba pinag-usapan yung characters, maganda ba siyang pakinggan, gano'n. Maganda pakinggan yung pangalan, how do they look like. So may study. And even if I'm not an artist, I'm happy that I was also able to help Milo fashion the characters. And of course the scenes. Mayroon kaming napagkasunduan na sa ending. Like I said, let's try to change the ending because this is how romances might end up. We haven't taken a romance class session before, so yun sinasabi ko kay Milo din na sige gawin natin ganito para romance talaga siya. And there. So on a general note, the journey of us as author and artist of Last Minute Love Do has been a lovely adventure din naman. We enjoyed each step of the way. There.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the process and that you're actually gonna continue this pala because yes, it did seem like a period piece and it's interesting na you're planning to parang ano to time jump ganon and then yeah time jump to the present day. So that's I mean if you've read, so for people who have read the anthology by now, hindi lang Last Minute Love You yung theme ng story and hindi lang siya yung last story in the anthology. It's also one of the last to actually arrive. And siguro yung ano na lang, before, wow, may comments na we don't know ha. Siyempre, we're talking about future Kilig anthologies in the comments. So maybe we'll see. Let's enjoy and celebrate the first one. Absolutely. So I just wanted to ask siguro before we move on to the next story. So you did describe your process, but how was the process like working together when you were obviously also cramming and the story is about cramming? How fast did this story actually come together?
How Milo. Paano ba? Kasi wala kaming hindi namin parang paano ba? Hindi kami nag-timetable. Parang ganun
I wrote the script for like
Nagbatuhan
a
lang
week, tapos tinapon ko lang just to remake it in an afternoon. Yung 18 page nga.
Sa chat, batuhan lang kami. Tapos when we think of something, lagyan natin to, tanggalin natin to, what if ganyan? And then, parang ganun na siya. Kaya sabi nga ni Milo, chaos talaga siya. Kasi doon lang, nagbabatuhan lang kami ng comments and ideas. Tapos, from there, na-fashion na namin. Hanggang sa nakikita na nga namin yung emails na parang we have to start drawing, mga gano'n. We have to start polishing the story. Ngayon na, gano'n. Of course, you don't recommend that you do that all the time. It's going to be taxing. But, yun, hindi kasi kami nahirapan sa isa't isa because we know how we work. Kaming dalawa. We know how each other works. And even with the suggestions, wala naman masyado kasi for example, si Milo, kung mahilig siya sa 90s and I'm my job is to just confirm na during the 90s, may ganito talaga. Ganun yung process namin. It's really more of a what's that term? Intuitive. Really more of intuitive. We just kind of feel. Tapos, sige, ilalapag niya, sasagutin ko, I'm going to say something, sasagutin niya, or magkakaroon siya ng extra suggestions. Ganun lang siya. We never fought. Okay? We never fought during the write-up of the story. Yun. So, thankful for that.
Thank you. So thank you, Chris and Milo, for sharing the process behind the story and the story as well. Thank you so much. Next up, let's have Yugen and Zee Dino, who did Against the Current. Hello, Yugen and Zee. So
Hello.
Z is
Hi.
in the, Z is here, but she's
She's not here.
a voice,
Ganon.
a voice in the a voice in the room. So yes, definitely. Thank you for joining us today, and let us know, like, introduce yourselves and tell us about your story.
All right, I'll go first. So, hi everyone. I go by the pen name Yugen. I go by she, they pronouns, and I wrote Against the Current in partnership with Zee Dino in the Kilig Comic Anthology published by RomanceClass and KOMIKET. So, I've actually been a writer for years now, but I've only usually written in fandom spaces, fanfiction.net, AO3, and even Twitter. But I've also been trying to finish my manuscript for Romance Class 2022, but that's still in the process of I'm still in the process of doing so. Pero yeah, so hopefully malapit na. Actually, ATC is what we call Against the Current kasi sobrang haba ng title. ATC was born out of a fanfic idea that's been in my mind for more than a year by the time of idea pitching. But I have never had the opportunity to develop it yet. So I wanted a mystic sort of story. Since I'm Bicolano, I wanted to add the stories of Halia, Bulan, and the Bakunawa in a story with certain twists that would divert from the canon pantheon stories to make it more or less original. So in this story, the god of the moon, Bulan, and the god of the sea, Haik, are rivals, but they're actually secret lovers, trying to put up pretenses of their rivalry or face the consequences. So those kinds of stories, I'm always weak for romance stories that have an undercurrent of angst. Medyo sinabi yun sa akin ni Miss Mina no, when I was pitching ito, parang medyo nervous ako. But ayun, sinabi ko na I wanted it to be happy ending nga because sucker din ako for happy endings. But also, yun nga, requirement din sa, sa romance class, which is good naman. But the happy ending of a romance story that I really would want is something without, not without compromises. So, I'm not going to say anything na lang para hindi ko ma-spoil yung story. But it's a happy ending that is well deserved, even though there is a lot of compromises from the both of them. So the balance and that compromise, the dialogue, and the dynamics of the characters were something I was excited to dive deep into and to figure out how to flesh out. So it was super fulfilling to see them developed by Z and finally in print. So ayun, I pitched my idea during the meeting, yung Zoom meeting, and I was a little nervous knowing that this story needed a lot of establishing details and a lot of the design concepts that were very unique to pre-colonial Asian clothing, for example, and then also there are a lot of very how do you say it? Unique and characteristic mga gods. For example, Bathala, he's in there too. But right after the pitch meeting, I was just writing down who we wanted to be our partners for the project. Z actually contacted me right away to partner up, and she was the top choice dun sa tatlo kong choices. So right away, it was like a match made in Kilig Heaven. So if I do say so myself. So si Z kasi when she pitched her portfolio, sobrang ganda. And feel ko I could envision my story in her style talaga, specifically. So, ayun, I'm really thankful that we can work so beautifully and so seamlessly for the 7 months that was the project preparation period. And I also just want to extend my thanks to Miss Nina, Sir Paulo, the teams in Romance Class and Comiket that made this project a reality. Ayun po.
Thank you, Yugen. So the way, actually, I'm glad you mentioned how you paired up because that's exactly how it happened. We did the speed dating, and then right after they emailed me and said, we chose each other na. So, uh, take us out of the running, parang ganon. And it's actually amazing how you even matched up because your story required so much detail and that artist should have been willing to work that hard to give that much detail to really make the story it should be. So, wala lang. Ganun lang talaga minsan, no? Hindi just,
Oo. Sometimes ang
oo,
biglang
Z,
it's like, oh, hindi mo na ina-expect
yeah.
na everything. Yun.
Yeah, what if ganun lang pala talaga. So, Z, what's your side of the story?
Hello po. Sulitin ko na po habang hindi pa masyado maingay dito. I am Z Delgado. My pronouns are she and her. I am a freelancer webcomic artist and have been doing webcomics since 2016. So for this project, for Against the Current, with my writer partner Yugen, sa simula po, I thought I could join the anthology kasi I thought it would be fun instead na working alone. Since 2016 pa po ako na gumagawa ng story. So, I feel yung effort po sa paggawa ng stories as an artist and as a writer, iba po talaga um, yung effort doon. Tapos kapag ako lang mag-isa, masyado pong mabigat. So, yun. Tapos, nung nag-pitch po si Yugen, na nakita ko po na sobrang nagma-match po yung themes po namin kasi before po nung Against the Current, I have an ongoing comic which is loosely based on Adarna, and it is about Philippine mythologies din po and yung gods. So kaya ko po na um nag-reach out po kay Yugen agad kasi doon po nag-match yung themes namin, and uh, previous sa comic po kasi I already have the themes and yung costumes po and yung other character design. So, yun. So, konti lang po yung preparation po na ginawa ko po for the design. Yun lang po.
Yeah, I mean, the way she talks about it, parang wala lang, no?
Very effortless.
Parang effortless. But sometimes nga, yeah, but sometimes it's just, sometimes the artist is just a match for the story and the story is a match for the artist. So that's how it happens. So, can you describe, okay, so that's, can you tell us, like how you work together? So, you can answer it like separately, or you can also describe just how the process was after choosing each other early on. How was it naman actually working together on this comic?
Ano po,
Actually, it was, ayun, go.
Yugen, yung about sa script po kasi, as an artist po, as much as possible, I don't want to makialam dun sa script before silang i-type ng writer. Also to lessen my workload din po. So, usually I wait for Yugen to finish per page or maybe per 5 pages before I pitch in my ideas, and kung merong mga things na i-remove namin for para iksian yung kasi with a limit of 24 pages po ba yun? Yun. So, Yugen,
Okay,
how
so
about you?
yung from my side naman, the process was a little challenging. Personally lang, kasi yun nga, I've only have experience writing in narrative form and prose, so that's very different from what is needed for the comic artist, for example, because you need to be more concise and more visual. So also taking into consideration the page limit for each story in the anthology, I had to put the story that was clear in my mind and narrative in my heart into a script and storyboard that Z could work with. Yun yung sabi ni Z, for example, na she had early work with Adarna and the Gods. That was really helpful because I asked her like, what kind of script do you need for you to visualize this comic to the fullest? So binigay niya sa akin yung script template niya, and that's what I worked on. Ayun, since she gave me, yung sabi nga na she gave me more or less a limit of 5 to 8 panels per page para mas okay siyang tingnan and hindi siya masyadong crowded, especially since problema ko na siya even in the narrative form na masyado akong wordy. So, yung sabi din ni Miss Suzette kanina na yun yung we had to cut down on the script, on the word limit, ganyan. Just so hindi masyadong wordy yung panels, and also we could get the point across um, in a more efficient way. And sometimes we'd work together on stream actually in a Discord server we have with our other friends. I'd be working on the script while he drew with on the pages, and then we would how yung parang we would hold each other accountable with the time and the efficiency, and we would give buffers for each other. Like what V said, she would give me like 5 pages of script in advance. Ako na yung gagawa nun, and then she would give me the pages right after she finishes them, and then I would edit. I would check like nag-fire off kami ng opinions with each other. Like, is this okay? Should we change it into this? Yung grammar, is this okay? Ganito ba yan? Until we finalize and yan, na-finish na siya. And then we set it aside para we can work on other pages. So that's why we had a really easy time kasi actually even if we started the scripting late kasi we had a lot of challenges in with time, especially on my part. But by I think I started around Feb or March, and then by May siguro around more than half of the pages were already done. So very efficient si Z. Sobrang na-amaze ako noon na whenever like a few days would pass, kasi bibigyan niya na sa akin, tapos na tong page, pa-edit na to. I was like, oh, okay. Medyo nasa-surprise na ako. But yeah, it went well in the end, as you can see. And na-finish na namin, natapos namin by the deadline, and I'm really happy at how it came out. So, yun.
Thank you. So, a few things are coming up again and again, at least with the writers, yung editing and suddenly working with an artist and in comics requires us to rethink the way that we write and sort of edit ourselves to think more visually, no? And mabawasan yung wordiness. And so that kept coming up also in our monthly meetings, especially when stories were being developed. And so any writers kasi usually yung audience namin for this podcast and for romance class in general. So yun. That's the thing we really learned during this exercise. Yung it doesn't have to be all words. and we actually could learn from editing from editing ourselves. Okay. So yeah, so if there's anything else you would like to share, you can mention it now. So anything you want. I would like to share something. So they were talking about the accountability and just the process of working together. I'm not sure about the other stories kung hindi lang ako nasabihan, but this particular story was going online on Webtoon before it was submitted, right? So you were
Yes.
actually getting an audience to see parang chapter by chapter or page by page
Yeah.
throughout. So you were parang accountable not just to each other but to an external audience na and not just to the
Yes.
deadline. So how did that
Mm-mm.
feel? How did that feel? Having an audience actually seeing it as it was in progress.
Um, Easy, go.
Para sa akin po, it's like something that pushes us to make the next page and then the next page until the deadline. Yung goal po namin is before the deadline or on the deadline mismo, not including yung extension po ng deadline, na matapos po namin yung story.
Ayun, for me naman, because Z has the early experience of posting on Webtoon, yung mga older works niya, but well, I haven't. Pero I also had the experience of posting yung mga ongoing works online for online readers to consume. It also was a good way to have like accountability, but also minimanage ko rin yung expectations. So for example, we had a tighter schedule na parang um every 3 or 5 days yung update. But then, sinasabi ko kay Z, like, magpahinga ka muna because we're on time naman. So we had to adjust yung update, yung regular updating schedule, for example, online. But it was really fun to see how it was going to be initially received kahit na page per page pa lang siya. Kasi we didn't upload it in one go. We uploaded it per page as a chapter. And it was really exciting to see like yung mga comments na, oh no, what's going to happen next. So as the writer for that, medyo nakampante ako na parang, okay, so it's going to be well received at the very least. Right now, I think we've posted it on Webtoon and Tapas, and I think aggregate may around 55,000 readership na kami with that comic series alone, with the 24 pages, 25 pages alone. So it was really exciting to see. And we've also, after that was finished uploading, we also tried to um, market the Kilig Anthology for everyone to actually have a copy of it and also to check out the other stories from other contributors as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Yugen and Z. So thank you so much. So they'll be hanging around, and if you have questions for them, please drop them into the chat, and they'll answer them later. Thank you. So before we continue to the next part of the program, I would like to remind everyone that we have KOMIKET coming up, past KOMIKET. It's the parang Christmas fair of KOMIKET. So details here. So it's going to be on December 3 to 4, that Saturday and Sunday at SM Mega Mall Mega Trade Hall all day. And there's a ticket price of 100. And we are going to be there. The Kilig Anthology will be there. RomanceClass books will be there. And we hope to see you there. So thank you. And a reminder, please, if you're watching the stream, please like the stream that we are in right now. If you're watching, there's a like button there. Please like the stream. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. So up next, I would like to invite Ghost. Ghost is the artist of Under the Apocalypse Sun. So that is Ghost is the artist. The writer for that story is not in the stream right now, but hello, Ghost. we can just ask you instead about how that story went. Hi, Ghost. Please introduce yourself and also tell us about your story.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ghost, and I'm the artist behind Under the Apocalypse Sun. The story is about the story. I'm sorry. So, a bit to give the gist of the story, it's
there it is. Yeah.
the world has undergone the apocalypse. Everything's flooded over. There are mutant monsters, and just that could be everywhere. Living conditions have deteriorated, and our main character, Natasha, is just having the worst time amidst it. She's been evicted. She lost a lot over time, and despite and amidst all of this happening, she meets a man full of hope with a way to possibly turn the apocalypse around. So Natasha, who is at this point despairing, just see him as a sort of light, and that's how they met and began their journey together. And a continuation on Peppermint.
Yes. So we have a comment asking for a continuation of the story.
C and I are definitely gonna work with that. As I definitely want to continue working on the pages that we weren't able to finish in time for the anthology, because that's where the meat of the romance is.
I wanna add by the way, just to give context to what to the comment and what Ghost just mentioned, is that Ghost and C actually were paired, I think, last in the process of putting this together. So they did not have as much time as everyone else in like meeting the deadline. But at some point, of course, everyone was developing the story. It was a developed story by the time that Ghost came on board. But we recommended that they just focus. So they just focus at the beginning and focus on like a good introduction to something. And I think that's what it's super interesting what when you look at the anthology and you see what artists are able and authors are able to do with the same 24 pages. And I think what happened here was that they did have to focus because they didn't have enough time. So yeah, so Ghost, how I think the cover, for example, is stunning, and all of the character work and the video that was shared earlier. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of working together with C?
The process with working together with C was, well, we at first we divided the task we were gonna do, and each week we would update each other on how much we got done. Of course, this wasn't there were some bumps in the road, but otherwise, C and I managed to keep in contact, so we knew what the other was doing, and as for so we would show each other our work, like when C was writing the script, she would show me some scenes. She would ask for my feedback about what would be, if this was possible for the script, if this is going to look good in comic format, if this would make sense, if the right, and some, as well as the writing itself. So I gave her my thoughts. I told her that, so for example, that some of the pages were a bit too congested. Some other pages might need to be, some dialogue seemed a little awkward in places, and the other stuff, and some, as well as my own thoughts of how this could be look more romantic, and etc. etc. Me, on the other hand, I would show C the comic pages I did, and she would tell me if there was anything that needed to be edited. I asked, and if I couldn't really decide on something about a page, she would give me her thoughts. Like for example, I wasn't sure about the color scheme of the pages towards the end of the comic. I showed her two options. One was closer to the dreary. One was a little closer to the dreary atmosphere in the first few pages of the comic, but most definitely brighter. The sun was there, while the other option was far more colorful, with purples, blues, yellows, and such. And the latter was what she chose, and that's what we went with.
Thank you. So one thing that also came out when we were talking about the stories with the authors and the artists is that some of these really are meant to be longer stories, or some of them were planned to continue beyond, and we actually encouraged everybody to continue because Comiket, as some of you, if you don't know, Comiket has fairs regularly. They offer space and tables to uh, comic artists to continue to sell your work. And it is a possibility that something that doesn't make, just because you didn't make the Kilig Anthology deadline doesn't mean that you won't ever this won't ever be a thing, and you can continue it. So definitely to everyone in the panel and to everyone who joined but didn't finish on the deadline, submitting a longer or a sequel or another volume is definitely something that we encourage you to do. Thank you so much, Ghost. And thank you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add uh, for Under the Apocalypse Sun?
Um, that we start not much. That just that we start we do plan to continue with the current progress of the comic sometime next year.
That's great. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
po.
so much, Ghost. And so the next part of the program, we're talking to authors specifically of Romance Class, who are doing, I guess, comics for the first time due to this project. Danice, if you're around, you can come into the studio now. So, sige, let's first talk to Celestine. Hi! Hello! Hello, Doc
Hello.
Leslie. So, okay. So, just so everyone parang has context again. This is a romance class and comiket project. We opened it up to people who write romance and also illustrate romantic stuff. The call for this collab attracted not just artists but also romance class authors who are authors mainly, and even if they've done even if they've written other for other genres or for different mediums, they tend to be the writer. So I wanted to ask them specifically at this part, like how it felt being part of this anthology as a writer, and I guess being used to writing novella and short story forms, and then suddenly having to write a comic. So how about let's start with Celestine. Hello. Celestine's story is Dr. Congeniality. So please introduce yourself and the story that you've contributed.
So, hello, I'm Celestine Trinidad. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the writer for the comic Doctor Congeniality. So, in collaboration with artist Liza S. De La Cruz. I've written other stories and books in various genres before. My first novella with Romance Class is Ghost of a Feeling, and I've contributed to anthologies such as The Doctor is in Love, and I have an upcoming YA novella coming out soon. I can say that now because I finished editing the manuscript, entitled Hearts and Sciences. So, Dr. Congeniality is about two doctors, Kim and Ethan, who are paired up for their hospital's annual fundraising pageant. The thing is, Kim rejected Ethan before when he asked her out because, for reasons, she doesn't date other doctors. But everybody just loves them together, though, and for the sake of raising more funds, Kim is willing to go along with it. That's the only reason, of course, she's not actually falling for him, right? Or is she? So, this is how the process of developing the comic went. I started out with the concept first. I really wanted to write a story set in a hospital fundraising pageant. So I'm a medical doctor myself, as you can probably tell. So that's why I tend to write stories that depict the lives and love lives of doctors. Fundraising pageants actually happen in real life, and I think there's so much potential for drama and fun killing moments in these pageants. Then I started to think about the characters. I had this idea that the main character doesn't want to date other doctors because there are doctors like this too. May hugot. But then she is paired up with a fellow doctor who has she has rejected before, for the drama. Yeah, and then the story just flowed from there. I've written a comic script before for a fantasy mystery story. My series Sinukuan and Tikbalang Mysteries. We're still working on that, so that will come out eventually. But this is my first time writing a script for a romance comic. It's a very interesting experience having someone visualize your story for you in this format. As a writer, one of my weaknesses is that I tend to forget to describe my characters or even just think about how they look like. I'm not the type of person who has visual pegs for my characters. But this time, since it is visual media, that was one of the first things that I had to think of. So I gave Lisa some pegs. At the time I was watching Ghost Doctor, so siya so alam niyo na kung sino yung peg ko doon. But I left it up to her to interpret based on how she saw the characters too from the script. And it was amazing because she really made the characters come to life, and that's exactly how I visualized them. And she was even able to add some details that I hadn't actually intended in the original script, but just made the comic a lot better and definitely more kilig. For example, I remember there was that one scene that I wrote that it was just Ethan taking a nap because he was tired from duty. Ganun lang. And then suddenly, there's a drawing niya. It was hot. So why is he so hot here? So, and obviously I'm okay with it. The added details and nuances. So, and the gowns for the pageant that she designed were also so beautiful. I just gave pegs, pwedeng ganito, ganyan. And then when she came up with the designs, wow, that's so nice. I'd love to wear something like that. So those were things that I could never have thought of myself, and that's why I'm really glad that we were able to be paired up, and because this was also my first time working with her, and it's nice to work with an artist who gets it. Your characters, and also kind of loves your characters too. So yeah, and so this I'm so glad to be able to be part of this project, and certainly something I'd love to do again. So thank you to Romance Class and KOMIKET for coming up with this project, and I hope we can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Celestine. So we've been thanked a couple of times na since this stream started, but I mean thank you, Paolo Comiket, because feeling ko I throw requests to the internet every day, and a few people make battle in such a big way, and Paolo definitely of Comiket was one of those people who just said, okay, let's do this, and he didn't just do it. The KOMIKET essentially funded the printing. They published it. They really committed full color pages. I mean, it is a big deal if you publish, and especially if you self-publish. The idea of we were actually telling artists to go ahead and have fun with color. Because in any other instance, we would be telling artists to hold back on colors because we can't afford it. But here we were actually going back and in the revision notes telling artists na, more color, please. It's okay. It's okay to do this. So yeah. So I mean, if you're thanking me, I'm going to thank Paolo definitely, and everyone at KOMIKET. So it's everyone, meaning Bunny, who did the layout and is our associate editor, and probably got in touch with a bunch of you and asked for revisions and just to make sure that as much entries as possible would make it to the finished book. Thank you so much. Yeah, and yeah, you did have fun with your colors. So a reminder lang, if you have questions about the anthology, about anything that went on, and also to any of the authors and artists here, please leave them in the chat, and we'll get to it later. So next up, let's talk to Danice. Danice, who wrote On the Way. Please introduce your story. Please introduce yourself, and just let us know how this all happened.
Hi everyone, I am Danice Sison and I am a romance class author. My previous works were Flicker number 2, Flipping the Script, as well as the Boys Love web series, Boys Lockdown. For Kilig Anthology, I am the author of OTW, or On the Way, which I collaborated with the fabulous artist Edie Bugs. So we had a lot of fun creating OTW, and it's a second chance romance about a 40-year-old journalist named Remy. And for him, Paeng was the one who got away. So OTW is an MM story na level 3. And Remy never forgot Paeng after sitting next to him during a bus ride to La Union when they were teenagers. So so almost 30 years later, their paths cross again at the LRT2. And can love finally be on the way for Remy and Paeng? So find out when you read it in Kilig Anthology. So ayun, I'm seeing some time lapse video here that Bug sent, and that was their process. Actually, I loved working with Bugs. I was so thrilled when I was paired up with them during the speed dating of this whole process, because of course I after the speed dating exercise, I'm sure everybody did this, but we looked up each other's work online to see if our styles would fit. The artist styles would fit the stories that we had in mind. So I stalked them on their Twitter, I stalked them on their Instagram, where they had a lot of their previous artwork uploaded. And what I loved about their work was that very heavy on MM. Tapos it obviously came from a fan perspective. Like they had a lot of fandom references in mind, and I found out na Voltron pala yung pinagmulan ng art ni Bug. So I was so thrilled when we were matched up, because I knew they would do justice to Paeng and Remy's story. So ayun, as the other artists and authors mentioned, it was a challenge then for me kasi ako pa na worthy author. But what I really appreciated about this match was that not only did I appreciate Bugs' art style, I really appreciated their work style as well. We have never met in person. So so we were matched, right, virtually, and then we exchanged numbers, email addresses, and then everything happened on Viber. So we would chat on Viber, and I even set up a Notion account, so where we dumped the script, the storyboard, the studies. So I submitted to Bugs the premise, the character sketches, just so they had an idea on the physicality of the of the characters. And ang happy kasi they were really able to flesh out the vision. And I remember mentioning to Bugs that my peg for Remy was Steve Buscemi, the actor. I wanted a young Steve Buscemi peg for Remy, yung parang ugly cute, ugly sexy type of guy. And then si Paeng naman would be this jock type guy, and in his older age would sort of have a dad bod na hot. Kasi the background of On the Way is actually based on two of my high school crushes na parang one day I thought, and this is in the contributors page for Kilig, what if two of my high school crushes ended up together after all these years? Like, wouldn't that be fun? So I kind of made it into semi-reality by creating this story. And actually, this story had a lot of details that were based on a friend that I had in real life, and I even had to ask for his permission to sign off on it to be able to use it in this story. Um, Parang it was sort of like a gift then to this person that I wanted him to have his own happily ever after, which he so deserves. So who knows if he's gonna read it or not, but it's out there. So and I think this story is as much of his story as it is ours. So I hope he does read it. And ayun, what I going back to what I appreciate about ED Bugs' work ethic was that we had timelines, and the timelines were hindi siya like established timelines, but we just sort of, it's weird pero we just sort of got into the groove na okay, we would message each other only in the mornings, we would never message each other after 8 p.m. Kumbaga may work-life balance because we both had day jobs. I know they had a day job, I had a day job, so I couldn't like work on the project 24/7. Talagang may oras siya. So when we get into that mindset of working on the way or OTW, talagang work siya that we would so ang naging process was I finished the story first, and I always had in mind the deadlines na parang I need to finish the script early as to be considerate to the author, kasi ayoko namang maging gahol yung oras niya in creating the art because I know that that takes longer. So I wanted to finish the script in January at the latest Feb, so that they can work on the actual panels and the art. And then another thing that I appreciated about Edie's work ethic and style was we would talk about it. Now we would talk about, okay, they would ask me like, how do you envision the story unfolding? Like, what would you want to see in the panels? And then I would try to describe it. But then, since visual mag-isip ang artist, I had to sometimes sketch it out for them. And ito yung nakakatawa kasi hindi ako magaling talaga mag-illustrate. So, ang funny kasi I would sketch it out in a really rudimentary way, like hollow stick figures, and then I'd send it to ED Bugs. And then they would send me back a fully fleshed out and fully realized version of the stick figure sketch that I gave them, and sobrang naintindihan niya what I wanted. So, that worked out well na parang they clarified with me how I saw a certain panel, a certain frame, and I would tell them. And yun, communication is key with things like this. Of course, we also encountered challenges such as wordiness, like they would tell me, dito kakasya, and I had to pare it down. I think that's a really important lesson for authors who collaborate with illustrators. When they tell you that something is weird, you have to listen to them talaga. Kasi you can force it, but it's not gonna look or translate as well on the page as you think it would be. So that's one. And then, ang bilis niyang mag-work. I love them kasi ang bilis niya talagang mag-work. Like, we would do something like a script, a paper, dialogue and panel lock. And then dapat we would walk through the pages like, okay, ito yung laman, and then we would toggle back and forth and check with each other, tama ba yung nakalagay, is everything in there. Yun, and we finished on time. As in, I think we were one of the earliest teams to submit our completed work on the original deadline of the Kilig Anthology. So proud ako dun. And then I also appreciated the feedback that we got from Bunny. Kasi although very confident na kami doon sa style of how we told the story, there were parang may dream sequences kasi yung OTW. So, we conveyed that through, parang may sleep patterns in certain panels, yung mga things like that to clue in the reader that this is a dream without saying na okay dream sequence ganyan. So Bunny gave a really, really good editorial note for us at the very end, which told us na there were certain pages there that needed parang a background to take us back to the present, or to situate the story. Where is it? Where are they really? Are they in the 90s here? Are they in a dream? Are they talking about the past? Are they in the present? So we took that to heart, and wonderfully, since pareho kaming magbilis mag-work, we were able to turn it around the same day. So, ayun, ang galing. I love how smooth it was overall working with ED Bugs on OTW. And then we only met in person on Feels Fest last month. So that was a fun experience na parang it was like meeting an old friend. Yun, na parang I enjoyed finally meeting them in the flesh. And yun, I'm so glad to have worked with them on this project. And sabi nga namin, we're open to collaborating again on other stuff. Kasi I think by this time, Remy and Paeng really had their HEA na. So maybe it's time to move on to another pairing. Who knows? But in the meantime, you can look up ED Bugs' work on Instagram. They're there, and they have a nice Stranger Things Eddie Steve fanfic comic going on there. So check it out then. So yun, that's it for me.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, I have inspired by what you shared. I have a question that I'm going to save for the Q&A. Next up, let's have Fay. Fay Sebastian contributed Egg Soup Sunday. So Fay, introduce yourself and tell us about your story.
Hello everyone, I'm Fay Sebastian. My pronouns are she and her. And I wrote all about that base from the Summer Feels Anthology. I also wrote Hugs You Can Hear as a webisode for Hello Ever After. And now my latest work is Egg Soup Sunday from the Kilig Anthology. Egg Soup Sunday is for the hearts that love out loud. It follows Elise, who wanted to notify her crush about her feelings. It's okay, they're friends, it's not a big deal. Her crush, Terence, did not feel the same way back then, but might just have a change of heart years later. And actually showing now the images of Arlie's process while drawing the comic, I worked with artist Arlie Pagaduan, whom I met through a common friend, KB Meñado. Speaking of KB, it's really serendipitous how everything came together because Egg Soup Sunday actually started as a prompt from KB. When she was working on her zine, OK to Be, I was a contributor in that zine. And she asked the question, if you could cook something for someone, what would it be and who would it be for? I answered, I'd like to cook my own version of an egg soup on a lazy Sunday morning and eat it with the love of my life. Egg soups have always made me feel warm and comforted, so it would be nice to share a moment like that with someone I deeply love. Followed by that zine prompt, what happened was that Egg Soup Sunday actually became a song. Before the comic, before everything happened, Egg Soup Sunday became a song. Because one thing about my stories is that I like naming them after songs. So if there's a story of mine and the song seems non-existent, it kind of means that it's an original from me. So when the time come that Romance Class announced that there would be a possibility of collaboration between Romance Class authors and artists, I took the chance on it. And when I attended the speed dating, I pitched my story. But since that time, there was a shortage of artists, not many people knew about it yet. I did not have a pair at that time. So my choices were all taken, unfortunately. But thankfully, again, because of KB, I remembered that Arlie is actually an artist who can draw, and I talked to her, and we presented ourselves as a pair, and working with her, it felt so magical because um seeing your work come to life in a visual way, it's unreal because we didn't have a systemic process because I was stuck with the story draft. I could not finish the paragraphs and everything. And while we thought that it was a chill timeline, malapit na yung deadline pero wala pa rin kaming natatapos. Kaya what we did was we had these phone calls where I described how I pictured everything in my head. And then she would send me these rough sketches. And then when I approved of those rough sketches, she finalized them, and then we added the dialogue. And we were one of the crammers of the anthology because we really had the hard time jump starting everything. But once everything was set in place, tuloy-tuloy na kami. And because Arlie knows the entire story behind Egg Soup Sunday, it felt like having a visual representation of my heart. And these work calls with Arlie were the best because we could talk together about our experiences, and it was a very comforting and warm environment. And I think that got reflected in the art of Egg Soup Sunday because the yellow and blue hues actually were inspired by my favorite band, Ben and Ben, because the songs of that band really evoke a feeling of warmth in me. I wanted to reflect that in the story. So Arlie did the great work in doing that. So Arlie Pagaduan is not yet here with me. She cannot come into this stream, but she sent those process photos so you can all see how everything happened behind the scenes. And Exup Sunday is actually first part of an entire series, and it has more parts coming soon because there's a big picture you haven't seen yet. And I hope you join the ride because, after all, we all know it ends in happily ever after. And all that's left is how to get there. That's it.
Thank you, Faye. So, for these three romance class authors who were working with artists to make a story into a comic. So I just want to ask how, like, what's the most difficult part of editing when it's editing when it's for a short story, or what's the difference ng editing when it's a short story or a novel, and editing when it's an artist you're talking to and it's an artist telling you it has to be this and that. Meron bang major difference in just essentially you're being edited by an artist versus being edited by an editor? Meron bang difference?
Yeah, ako, I felt it. Like I mentioned kanina, parang, how does it translate? Like, if, for example, you have two characters who are having a long conversation. So, when we're just reading words on a page, sometimes it works, diba? Kasi we already have that movie running through our minds. We envision that happening while we're reading dialogue. In comics, other things have to happen while they're having that conversation, and they can't just be back and forth. Admittedly, in OTW, I had to have a back and forth, but we were able to work around it because it took the entire page for that back and forth, and it was a text exchange kasi. So parang inisip ko that could work naman. Pero yun nga, as a rule, try to minimize the dialogue without anything else happening in the background. But a good lesson there to be had is when it's an opportunity for you to place some clues about where the story is going while that conversation is taking place between your two characters. And your readers will probably appreciate you for it kasi parang you're not directly telling them in words what's happening, but they're like little tiny visual clues and surprises in the background. At least that's what happened with OTW.
Is that Liza, as in Liza de la Cruz? Hello, Liza. Hello, Liza, and we've been talking about you. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, May, you were about to answer.
With me, I had to unlearn something because in my early days as a writer, I was told that I keep just dumping everything on the page without any setting, without any detail. Like, give us more detail. Don't just tell us, show us, etc. So when I learned throughout time to add more detail, to add the background, and then I had to unlearn that again with the anthology because my words were too long. I had this problem that I had this vision in my mind. I wanted to convey all of these scenes. And then suddenly I realized we only have maximum 24 pages. How can we fit all of those? And then I asked for advice from my beta readers. And actually, I have to give a shout out here to Miss Danice because she's the one who gave that comment that solved everything in my head because she said something along the words of you have to trust your artist to show what isn't said. So when she said that, it clicked in me, and I started writing the dialogue in a way that I know that Arlie can show it, Arlie can do it, Arlie can provide the context that I omitted. So that's the thing with editing and writing for comics because you have to keep it short. You have to trust that the visuals will convey what you did not put into words.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, Leslie, please go.
Yeah, actually related to that. Kasi most of what I did was just, write the script, parang put some minimal na, and some descriptions, but most of it was just telling Lisa, okay, ikaw na bahala. ikaw, parang, or as if I would describe, parang naalala ko meron akong notes doon that said, they look yung Ethan is teasing her but she looks annoyed but happy at the same time. I don't know how you're going to show that on the page, but bahala ka. And she did. She, and then, so yun eh. I think for me, I didn't have there wasn't a lot of back and forth between the script writing and the illustrating because I finished the script and then I waited for Lisa to send in the illustrations, and it was already and when she gave the illustrations, wow, napagkasya niya din sa isang page kasi I also don't know how to do storyboarding yung storyboard. So yeah, so she also handled that, but yun it she was able to do that. So yun, yeah, it's more of I trusted her to to illustrate it how I wanted to. So and also one thing that was different for me when I after na lang to kasi there were some dialogues nga na parang masyadong wordy when it was already put on page, and my sister helped us with the flat coloring and putting of the text din sa speech balloons, and doon ko na nga na-realize na parang ang dami niyang sinasabi, so I also had to cut down on some of the words there so that it wouldn't look too crowded on the page. So that was most of our back and forth nga lang kasi was were for minor things like yeah, I would tell Lisa hindi dapat mas maiksi pa yung sleeve nila yung ganun, or masyadong mababa yata yung ano yung neckline, so parang ganun. Those were the yeah, so most of it really was it was we had an easy time, I think. Kasi because we had a really trusting relationship as an illustrator and writer, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. So that's the main program. We've covered all of the questions that I was going to ask all of our guest creators. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And if you are a creator of Kilig who is here now, this is now the Q&A. So I may now ask you questions. So if we can have them, if we can have anybody who can come up to the screen, please come up now. I think Tanya, our director, can do that for us. And then if you're a creator for Kilig and you're watching the stream, you can also participate through the YouTube chat. Like, it doesn't have to be on screen. You can answer questions and also comment on sa YouTube chat natin. So kasi I'm seeing our artists in the chat. So kasali kayo dito ha sa mga tanong ko. So my first question is, when you finally saw it and you read the other stories, can you give me a reaction to a story that you didn't write? Who wants to start? Like, just a quick reaction on a story that you did not write or illustrate. Sinong meron? Okay, let's start with Faye. Faye, do you have a reaction to a story that you didn't write?
Yes, I have a reaction to Against the Current. Because as I was mentioning kanina sa comments, it was like watching an anime even though you're reading, because it's so detailed and I love the mythology behind it, and I also admire that they have an ongoing series. So I was so invested in the story, and it felt like a lot of stakes were there, and super na-amaze ako sa talagang pagkaka-bring to life ng art and story together. So ayun.
Thank you, Faye. Nabanggit ni Yugen sa presentation niya yung reaction ko to their script. Because I was like, wait lang, this is like, ano to? Anong nangyayari dito? And, diba? But it's because at some point, if you've read it, you know that at some point, something happens and then it's explained what actually happened. So anyway, yun yung reaction ko. Anybody else has a reaction to a story that they didn't write?
Sige ako.
Yes.
Yun kasi, so my artist, Liza De La Cruz, was also the artist for another comic in the anthology, so yung One True Plant. And when I saw One True Plant, I was amazed kasi even though it's by the same artist, illustrated by the same artist, it had really different feels. Oh my gosh. Kasi this one, I felt, I think somebody mentioned before, parang Studio Ghibli-ish yung art, and yun, and it was a really nice story kasi I do follow Carla de Guzman is the writer of that comic. Carla's other books, and yung the family there is also and the family also in her other books, so it was also nice seeing them on the page, and there are other parts din na parang really hit home for me kasi yung the main character there, sinabihan siya ng kuya niya na are you saying na ay mahalaman kuya? So I had and it's nice seeing yung a writer that you read before na on a different medium, but still with the same elements of Kilig that you like and that you love in their work. So yeah, that was nice. And also, of course, Against the Current, because I do write fantasy too, na based on Philippine mythology. So yeah, that and I follow the webtoon, yung Adarna and the Gods. So it was also nice seeing the comic there. So it's nice seeing two different. It was really nice, actually, the whole anthology, because it was varied styles and works, but all with the same romance, happy ever after or happy for now ending. Masaya kasing alam mong masaya ka after reading. So yeah.
Thank you, Celestine. And if I may say so myself, as the co-editor, yes, I actually do think that each story is so it brings its own parang depth of feels into the book, 'di ba? And syempre I love saying it because we put it together. And but sometimes talaga I feel na when working with romance class, parang sinuswear I don't know. I'm sure if you know, you know, it feels like we get lucky all the time when we do romance class. It's like I don't know if it attracts a certain kind of person, or there really is just so many talented people and they're just waiting for their shot. And when you open it up like this and then you give them guidelines to follow and a deadline suddenly, so, so sorry, depth of feels. Oh. So, na-call out, oh. Pwede na yan, oh. I have a suggestion pala since na-bring up si One True Plant. There is a version of One True Plant that I think Liza as artist and Carla as author, I suggest that you share your original spread for the kiss because the published version is I think it was Bunny requesting that revision just so there will be less chance of printing error. But the original parang vision they had for the kiss was a 2-page spread that na I think you should share it online. Suggestion lang. Para makita natin yung work that you put in oo. Oo. Yan, just director's cut, yan. Mag-share kayo i-share niyo naman. I think in a way that we can appreciate it, and yun nga kasi may print yun yung I mean I understand why it was asked for that. I understand why that revision was asked for, pero I think like digital or in or online you can share it and we can appreciate it for the original layout. Parang suggestion lang. Okay, anybody else? Danice.
Ayun, I wanted to particularly mention the first story of the anthology, si Panaginip ng Pag-ibig by Mariani. I loved it kasi it set the tone perfectly for what readers can expect that's coming to them. Like unang story pa lang, you know it's gonna be kilig, it's gonna be some stories are gonna be funny, lighthearted, and what I loved about it is that ang strong ng writing, ang strong ng art, and there were really lines there na sobrang natawa na lang ako because it was just so parang deadpan yung pagka-deliver. I mean, these are pieces of dialogue that I could actually hear even if I was reading them, and sobrang nakakatawa lang, and nakarelate ako doon sa napaniginipan mo lang one time and then the next day crush mo na, mahal mo na. Sobrang that was so real for me. So shout out kay Panaginip ng Pag-ibig by Mariani.
Yes, I agree. So yeah, and for the people who weren't part of the monthly Zooms, her story was so complete from the earliest
Start
sessions.
to pigit si Mariani.
Oo. Para ano siya, lagi siyang super detailed from the earliest meetings nga. Like she knew what she was gonna do, and she knew what it was going to look like, and she knew what it was going to be about. So if ever yung part lang naman ng romance class that we guided hello Don. Yung part lang naman ng romance class that we guided people on is yung leaning into the romance, because apparently a lot of the comic artists sanay sila kasi na serial, you'll hint at the romance but never really go through with it, or you'll delay it as long as you can for whatever reason. So we actually if there was anything that we guided artists and the Komiket side of the creator group on was to lean into it. Yung okay lang, alam na, a romance reader knows na sila rin yung magkakatuluyan. Don't worry about it. Like, do not worry about giving too much away or not introducing enough drama or not introducing enough conflict. Don't worry about it. Just focus on the romance. And then that was also a hello Don, yes. Hello. And what and the other and then when it came to like giving feedback nga, so Kat has a comment, Saberkite has a comment, curious tuloy ako sa mga thoughts ni Bunny on the layout and what sort of changes were made given the print limitations. Nako, Bunny had a lot of work. Especially after the deadline came in and everyone submitted the stories, because Bunny Luz, our associate editor, Bunny had to do the layout and make sure that everybody made sure that everything fit. So I think we had a page count limit na if it exceeded a certain page count, the price of the book would change, and we wanted to keep the price at a certain point na full color pa rin siya and then I haven't mentioned pala the cover artist. The cover artist is Betsy Cola. So, isa pa yun. So, Betsy Cola gave us some beautiful studies and then we couldn't choose. So, we have two. we just said, why not both? So, we did a print run essentially with two colors of the cover, and it's actually now fascinating which one people end up choosing. And every now and then tinatanong ko si Komiket na sino yung leading sino yung leading na choice. But based on what I see online, I'm sort of seeing blue and pink pretty much equally. So that's fun. But yeah, so Bunny had to make all of these choices and going back to the artists and creators and just asking them either to cut or to merge or to just make sure that the pages were laid out okay, because like we're not you definitely can be ambitious with your colors, but not too ambitious na baka magpalya sa printing because of how it's laid out. So may mga ganon. Yeah. Anyone else with a reaction to a story they didn't write? Anybody else? Yes, Gianne?
Yeah, I wanted to mention how much I like Egg Soup Sunday. This one. Nina Miss Fay. There's just something about it that's ano kasi. I think it was supposed to revolve around the song. But the thing that I find interesting is, aside from the contrast that Arlie Pagaduan did with blue and yellow, there was also this contrast of the main character having so much to say, but at the same time, something about the whole comic is quiet. I don't know if it was intentional, pero it feels quiet at first, but at the same time, the silence around the comic gives a sense of how important yung sasabihin ng character, the thing that she wants to tell the love interest at the end. And I'm just sorry, kinikilig ako about that. It's nice. I really like it. That's all.
Thank you. That's so cute. to be kilig at a story in Kilig. Thank you. So I also wanna. So unless anyone has a reaction to share, so I just wanted to add na. We also had some. If you were curious about editorial comments, so Bunny had comments about print and layout. I usually had comments on like if I had editorial comments, it was usually that yung show the romance. A lot of the writers are I would usually comment kasi on the writing stage. So a lot of the writers are, I noticed, concerned about, syempre, tayo-tayo naman to. It's also a thing that I'm worried about. But it's establishing relationships, establishing the characters, establishing the world, the cast of characters. And then when you have maximum 24-page limit, in the end, even ako, I was like, you know what, you can cut a lot of these things out, but you have to make sure that there's romance. So suddenly, sudden, and I never realized that I would say this, but this relationship with this friend, you can remove this relationship with this with the sibling or whatever. Actually, pwedeng tanggalin to. Yung kasi you need time, you need you need panel time and you need page time devoted to the romance because we're writing romance and we had that limit. And it was super fascinating for me to see what people did with their 24 pages. So not all of the comics were 24 pages. Some of them were shorter, actually. And it's so interesting what people did with their panels and their pages. So it's also very instructive to me as somebody who was sort of listening and watching sa sidelines. So I was actually asked if this is something we're going to do regularly, meaning definitely in the chat there was like questions about Kilig too. That's something I haven't actually discussed with KOMIKET, but actually you can do it anyway. So the way that you collaborated with the artist or the way that you put it together, if you just work on it again and then either put it up as a zine or put it up as a standalone comic, and then you know where to contact KOMIKET so you can sell it. RomanceClass has events and you can sell it there also. And we and then we have opportunities also because of just new places where we can put up the comics, like Webtoon, which Yugen and Zee did, or Pen Lab, which is something that I just need the details, but all of your stories are going up on Pen Lab at some point. And they also are just launching. If you watch their launch, they are working on a creator dashboard so that prior kasi 'di ba you had to submit your comic to a person. Yeah, and then they're working on a creator dashboard wherein you can just upload. But also they're aware of us. I mean, they are part of like the KOMIKET awards. They're part of this like ecosystem that we've joined, wherein your comics, the comics that you created during this collab, has an audience and has like a distribution model that's waiting for it. So yun. So for those looking for Kilig 2, pahinga muna tayo. pahinga muna tayo. But definitely, I think we can't go back. Parang we can't go back and not create comics anymore. Parang we can, the way that we enjoyed this process so much. And also, the way that we enjoyed this process so much, and it's doable naman pala, and it can be an episodic small thing, or it can be a book, and now we're figuring out who our readers are and the audience are for it. Then we can figure out what more they want and what more they need. So a few things pala that we did for the first time here is that we included in an anthology the heat level scale. So you noticed siguro no, na it was the first time then that we got to do that. Well, we've had anthologies before where we had some signifier of heat. Na the story had a sex scene. But actually, in terms of putting the heat levels mismo in the book, this was the first time. We also had like an indicator in the table of contents, the heat level. So we're starting to see if readers are okay with it. If readers are okay with this kind of anthology with varying heat levels. Like, do they come in because of the hotter heat levels, or do they skip those parts? We'll find out. So I'd love to parang get in touch with readers and talk to them about this. So if you do not have a copy of Kilig yet, please head over to bit.ly/comiket bookstore and get your copy. So there are two variants, a blue and a pink. Wait, let me pull up the blue because I have both. So there's blue and there's pink. And you can order it from KOMIKET Bookstore. They actually offer international shipping. So it doesn't have to be just in the Philippines. If you're overseas, you can order also. And we will be at PASCOMIKET next week. So next week, we will be at, we meaning the book. I will not be manning a table at Pascomic at this time, but because I tried that at the last Comiket and I didn't get to go around and and buy stuff and see the other tables. So I will be at Pascomic definitely on December 3, but I will be going around and I will be saying hi and buying stuff. So our books will be there. I think they'll be at the Secret HQ table. Based on the floor plan there, it's like near the door, near the entrance. So our books will be there, and also RomanceClass books. So yeah, let me just check if we have other questions. And okay, so we don't have questions, at least right now, for our panel. So thank you so much to everyone who joined. Thank you to the artists and the authors. Thank you for contributing your source and spending 7 months of your life doing this with us. Salamat sa pagpatol. Thank you for also opening the door. I think a lot of people realized na suddenly this was doable because they saw us go through it for the first time. And it's not that hard. Kaya naman pala. So I'm glad that we were able to do this together, and I feel very honored to have worked with everyone. Everyone's so talented, and if you tune in, by the way, to any updates from the Comiket, like Twitter, Facebook, you'll find out that there are awards. That the Kilig Anthology entries are part of the Comiket Awards. So they'll announce the winners at PASCOMIKET. I'm not sure when, but they'll announce it at some point. And I'm hoping that Kilig Anthology contributors win big and show that this is a great. Well, I know it's a great anthology, but I hope that it opens the door and then just introduces to more comics readers that you are also talented and you've done such great stories. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone who watched today. Thank you for watching the stream. Please subscribe and like and do all of the things. Thank you everyone. Bye.